Welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody is having a great weekend. Looking forward to a productive next week. Hi, Jagsir Shuk Sejuti. Nice to see many students in the class. In this lesson, everyone, we are looking at speaking part 3, mastering that band 9. Specifically, we are going to look at questions, practice answers, and talk strategies while we do this. Hi, Kuldeep. Good to see our members as well. This lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Check us out there for the general IELTS. Visit us at ieltshelp.com. On both of those websites, we have lots and lots of materials for you. This is our academic website here with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join our premium package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. We're British Council IELTS Registration Center for the IELTS exam, and we are also certified British Council agents. Definitely check us out on gieltshelp.com for the general IELTS. Again, click that big red button for a full course that includes videos, practice exams, and even free speaking with other IELTS students. So check those out. I encourage you. We have a new kind of fun listening multiple choice challenge on our Instagram, IELTS_AEHelp. And GIELTS Help. Those are our Instagram profiles. Have a look at those. Have fun with the new listening quiz portion. It's kind of neat. And if you have questions, Adrian at aehelp.com. Hi, Rashika. Hi, Janelle. Welcome. David, good to see more members coming into the class. All right, students, so this is the last class for this week. No classes Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then we have one more week, Wednesday to Saturday, with this schedule. And then from May 5th, we will have a new schedule. So I'll let you know about that. But it looks like it's the time that most people or more people are going to be available for these classes. So here we go, everyone. This is speaking part 3. It's the challenging part. It's following part 2. And this is a speaking class, so make sure to speak and repeat. Now, let's get right into it with some Q&A, some questions and answers, and then we'll talk a bit more strategy as we go along. So here we go. The last class, I was talking about grammar half an hour ago with our members. And we were talking about the Burj Khalifa. I used a cue card example, part 2 cue card, about a beautiful building. So these are part 3 questions in connection to that part 2 cue card. Let's talk about modern architecture. Okay. Here we go. First question. Where do architects get inspiration for their building designs these days? So try to answer that question. Focus on that one. Where do architects get inspiration for their building designs these days? Okay, doesn't have to be the truth, doesn't have to be a perfect answer. You can guess, make it up. What's important is that you show nice, fluent, clear, coherent, and complete English. Okay, all right. Shok Sultan, I am from Canada. I am in Victoria on the west coast in British Columbia. Okay. All right, I'm going to start typing up an answer, saying an answer while you do yours, and then we'll compare. Okay, so All right. So we have some great answers coming up from our students. It's nice to see. All right. David says the architects are getting inspiration from the beautiful cities with rich history that already exist. Why, David? Why do you think they're getting inspiration from there? Jesse says architects are inspired by the nature around them. These days, they try to include as much of it in homes as possible to bring us back to our roots. Nice natural English, Jesse. Do you have an example of a building maybe that is giving you this idea? Kevin says nowadays architects' inspiration is ignited from meandering around built-up areas and just gazing at different building styles and utility, like the movie 500 Days of Summer, where the male protagonist takes his girlfriend around downtown Los Angeles' concrete jungle to fire his imagination. Also, new ideas sparked from socializing with other fellow artists at art fairs. Very nice, Kevin. I like your use of natural language, sparking ideas, concrete jungle to explain a metropolitan area. In igniting inspiration, it's a nice use of the verb ignite. Very good. I take note of that. So does the IELTS examiner. Okay, good. Here's my answer. Repeat after me, students. Okay, repeat after me. Where do architects get inspiration for their building designs these days? I believe that building designers get inspiration from not only other experts in their field, but also from nature and science fiction. This is because there is great beauty in nature. I know that the new airport in Istanbul is designed to look like a tulip flower. Okay. I think, if I remember correctly, it's the new airport, Airport 3, I think it's called. I think, if I remember correctly. I come across a lot of information, but it looks like a tulip. And yeah, if you can think of some buildings to give examples for your answers, then that's fantastic. Okay, that's what you want to do. All right. Let's take a look at a couple more. Kuldeep says, I believe that engineers use the power of their imagination, and also they get inspiration from nature like forests, mountains, and deserts. Okay, good. Watch your word choice and grammar, Kuldeep, but that was good. Nico says, many architects design their buildings based on environmental issues. Japan has been building anti-earthquake buildings to avoid natural disasters. So inspiration from utility, Nico. It's a good idea, all right? Sean says the major ways that architects design their masterpieces are from magazines and travel to different countries, like Rotterdam, famous for their distinctive post office building a few years ago. Sean, that is really nice. Okay, I love your answer because your answer contains an answer, an explanation, and an example. It's definitely high-level English. You're definitely going for that Band 8, Band 9. As long as you're fluent, you're clear, you're going to score just fantastic. Charmin, thank you. It's very kind of you. Manvi says, mostly building designers adopt the architecture of ancient buildings because of the strength and flexibility of the designs of the buildings from the 90s are more attractive. For example, the Taj Mahal is... Okay, and then you ran out of characters, but I think you're on the right track. So neo-modern, using older architecture. Okay, good. Let's go to the next question. It was, can you give examples? I think we've already given some examples. Now, oftentimes you have this kind of follow-up question, like, can you give examples? However, if you did include an example, like, I know that the new airport in Istanbul is designed to look like a tulip flower, then they'll most likely skip that question of the can you give examples, and they'll go right to the next question. And we're going to do that now. So what do you think is the most important function of buildings that are designed these days? So, what do you think is the most important function of buildings that are designed these days? So, what's their purpose? What do you think? Okay, what's the most important function? And again, you don't have to have the right answer or the perfect answer. You just need a good answer. And that's what you have to focus on. So keep your mind open, okay? And think about cliches. Like, what would most people say? If you asked 20 people this question, then what would they say? Okay, Kevin says the fundamental role that complexes serve is to provide people with shelter as global population continues to soar. More importantly, high-rises are constructed to address some urban planning issues, such as not having adequate real estate to accommodate the influx of migrants. This is the reason why new buildings in metropolises are developed vertically rather than horizontally. Very nice communication, Kevin. Great use of language, great use of vocabulary. Definitely on a Band 9 track. Just make sure that you're fluent and with clear pronunciation. That's great. Aruna says the main features would be to attract the tourist and comfort them, like the Burj Khalifa that we talked about in the previous part. And you could add that, Aruna. So this is where you could really nicely connect to part 2. I'm not sure, Aruna, if you were in the last class, but we talked about the Burj Khalifa, and we did mention that it has been attracting millions of tourists from around the world to Dubai. So this is where you could really nicely connect. So if you think that the main feature of modern buildings is to attract the eyeballs of the people both locally and internationally, bringing tourists into the city, which is quite arguable, then you could connect that part 2 answer, just like the Burj Khalifa, of course, in Dubai. All right, Kuldeep says, actually, I suppose the prominent function of buildings nowadays is either to provide a nice and cozy living area or workplace. Yeah, okay, Kuldeep, good. So I'm going to give an answer while some more students give theirs. So all right, so borrowing a little bit from Kevin in this response, arguably that's a great answer. It's nice to perceive this concept that, yeah, we're running out of space. Real estate is really becoming very valuable. I know, because in Victoria it's completely out of control. Here we go. So, what do you think is the most important function of buildings that are designed these days? I think that the utmost importance of most complexes nowadays is to create space for the ever increasing global population. Most new structures are being built vertically, means going up, while maximizing the use of space for both work and living. I've noticed the average 2-bedroom apartments built over the past 5 years are half the size of those built 3 decades ago, right? So it's arguable. All right. Kyle Rochelle says some are built to be hospitals while others are meant for entertainment. Okay, so buildings that provide goods and services for people, that could be an answer as well, Kyle. A little bit more clarity, a little bit more explanation, okay? Janelle says the most important function of buildings that are designed nowadays is a sustainable structure, because this structure helps to generate less waste and land degradation. Yeah, absolutely. Smart buildings, or green buildings, as they're often referred to, Janelle, are being built in many localities around the world to create living environments which minimize the carbon footprint of human beings. I agree with you, Janelle. That's very, very clever. Juan Pablo says the most important objective of buildings nowadays is functionality in many ways. These are the reasons they lack beauty and space. One of the last big buildings architects built in my city has 50 floors. It looks like a big box, but it has many amenities inside, including 3 pools and a big hall for parties. Very good, Juan. Yeah, so functionality over aesthetics. Good. Manvi says, nowadays, the buildings that provide more access to equipment for the comfort of the residents and visitors, like new technologies to build skyscrapers for a large number of people in a small space, are like the Burj Khalifa, carry various hotels, offices, and malls in one locality, are the primary goal of architects. Okay, Manvi, make sure to connect back to the question, okay, the main goal. All right. Can you elaborate? So can you give more details? Sure. Since the price of real estate has become 7 times more now than a generation ago, contractors must be very strategic with their investments to make profit. And this is also driving the cost of buildings and living space through the roof. So builders find clever ways to create massive structures like the Burj Khalifa that reach to the sky and house lots of people on a relatively small lot. Okay, so going into more detail. Here we go. Can you elaborate? Sure. Since the price of real estate has become 7 times more now than a generation ago, contractors must be very strategic with their investments to make profit, and this is also driving the cost of buildings and living space through the roof. Through the roof means an extreme amount, lots, a great amount. So builders find clever ways to create massive structures like the Burj Khalifa that reach to the sky and house lots of people on a relatively small lot. It's not house, it's house. It's the verb form, okay? So teaching you a little bit of language here as well. Verb house, okay? And a couple of idioms here as well. Through the roof, okay? And reach the sky, all right? So pay attention to those. Rajveer says the primary utility of today's structures is to provide enough sunlight and safety to occupants. Such buildings often have big glass windows to make the room brighter and provide a fire escape. Sure, why not, Rajveer? Kuldeep Singh says, like in Dubai, as I mentioned earlier, not only does the Burj Khalifa, but also many other high-rise buildings serve multiple purposes. Now tourists can even shop and live in the same building, killing two birds with one stone. Yes, that's probably the piece that was omitted there. Very good. All right. Sai says, nowadays, people choose more nature-friendly apartments because of the increase in temperature due to global warming. So people are looking for newer designs that keep in mind protection of the environment, using less electricity and making more use of natural sunlight. Sure. All right. So let's keep going here. Now, so far, we've covered a few questions, and I've seen lots of good answers. Here, again, focus on answer plus explanation plus example. And for those of you who saw the previous class, think, and I saw a couple of you doing this, which was really great. Don't think I didn't catch it. I definitely caught that. So some of you are using the not only but also and have been. That's great. So think about useful grammar to link and emphasize your answers. All right. Here we go. So let's talk about historical sites. Why do you think people declare certain places as historically important buildings? Give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. So why do you think people declare certain places as historically important buildings? So why does somebody go, hey, that's an important building? Okay. All right, so Little Mermaid Love says, I think that the meaning and memories of the past, as well as the historical unique structures of such buildings, are some major criteria that are regarded to be historically important for humanity. So, certain buildings that have these qualities are designated as historical sites. Little Mermaid, you have a good answer, but be careful. You want to directly respond to the question. Okay, make sure to do that, to directly respond to the question. Sean says, I think it's because history classes instill this concepts in students' minds. Another reason would be TV shows and news that put an emphasis on its significance to persuade everyone to cherish the building. Okay, that's an interesting idea, Sean. So basically calling a building historically important so that we have something to talk about. I don't know if I agree with you, but yeah, it's an argument. Kevin says, perhaps those places have stood the test of time or witnessed some historically significant events. Like in Hanoi, the area where our Proclamation of Independence was read is now hailed as a national historic treasure. Very good, Kevin. Just one interesting correction, Kevin. It's not as the national historic treasure. It's as a national historic treasure. Why? Because Vietnam will have more than one national historic treasure. Okay. Juan says, people do it because they are related to key moments that changed history politically, socially, or culturally. The Parthenon is historically important because it is related to the birth of democracy, which, by the way, we take for granted these days. Okay, Juan, a little bit of personal opinion there as well. Careful with that, Juan. That would be considered off topic. So I appreciate the smile. Just in your official IELTS exam, don't load your answers with emotions or personal opinion that goes off track. Yeah, I agree that we take democracy for granted. We think that, oh, we always get to vote and we always had freedom of speech, and we don't realize how much control and oppression there has been throughout human history. But you don't want to push that into your responses because it's off topic here, okay? Otherwise, a very good answer, very good example of the Parthenon, okay? Aruna says some buildings or landmarks are of historical value and they are attached to people's emotions. Another reason is that because of its uniqueness. Okay. All right. So there are several reasons that society will designate a certain location as a heritage building. This can be due to certain important events that are connected to the site, or even important historical figures that may have inhabited the residence or area. Just down the street is the famous Canadian painter Emily Carr's house, and it is now a museum. All right. So here we go. And this is true. So why do you think people declare certain places as historically important buildings? There are several reasons that society will designate a certain location as a heritage building. This can be due to certain important events that are connected to the site, or even important historical figures that may have inhabited the residence or area. Just down the street is the famous Canadian painter Emily Carr's house, and it is now a museum. Okay. There we go. Notice the paraphrasing. So here, when you're pushing for a high band score for your IELTS speaking, you want to do as much paraphrasing as possible. Use the question in your answer and paraphrase. So declare, designate, historical building, heritage building. Heritage meaning a part of the local past and the local history. Okay. In the area where I live right now in Victoria, it's called James Bay, and there are lots of what's called heritage buildings. These are character homes that were built over 100 years ago from wood, and they're beautifully designed in the Victorian style. And a lot of these homes have this plaque on them that says designated a heritage building in 1973. Okay, so heritage sites, heritage buildings are historical monuments. Okay, follow-up question. Should these places be protected by the government? So should the government be protecting these historical places? What do you think? What's your answer there? Again, give me a nice full sentence answer to this question. So, should these buildings be, let's see what you say. Rajveer, I think that's for the previous question, but it looks great. Some structures not only possess state-of-the-art designs of a specific period, but also are used in historical events. People often feel attached to them, like the Red Fort is a historical building in India which was used by many kings and Indian prime ministers to address the nation from this place on the Day of Independence. Okay. Let's see. Nico says, yes, certain individuals believe that the construction has been of such importance that it's iconic for human history, such as the pyramids of Egypt. Yeah, lots of great examples. Nico, watch your grammar. Kuldeep says, I have mixed notions on this one because on one side, it's essential to preserve history, but on the other side, government can provide lots of space for many financially challenged families rather than preserving these historical and expensive sites. Okay, Kuldeep, I get your answer. I think it's good. I think you could create more clarity. I know, your space is limited in the chat, but more clarity, okay? Little Mermaid says, yes, they should, as not only do such buildings act as a symbol for historical education among local people, but they also generate an enormous revenue from tourism. Yep, that's another argument, right? Is that they can generate lots of money from tourism. Chandra Deep says, I agree that governments should preserve and protect these historical architectures as they're important for historians and they will tell current and future generations about the nation's past and roots. Try not to repeat yourself, Chandra Deep. Very good. Okay, nice. So, should these places be protected by the government? Yes, I strongly support the idea of using taxpayer money to both preserve as well as to restore historically significant buildings, as many of these symbolize the great achievements of our ancestors, and it is respectful to treasure this, as well as inspiration for future generations to aspire to build greatness. A perfect example of this are the great pyramids of Egypt. Which, I don't know, slave labor, that was kind of not the greatest, and that's how they did it, I'm sure. But again, IELTS, it's not about judging you ethically or about the accuracy. It's about giving a good answer. I probably wouldn't, deep down in my heart, say that. But Burj Khalifa, hopefully not too many people were injured during that build, or there's no slave labor, hopefully. Here we go. So just repeat after me. Should these places be protected by the government? Yes. I strongly support the idea of using taxpayer money to both preserve as well as to restore historically significant buildings, as many of these symbolize the great achievements of our ancestors, and it is respectful to treasure this, as well as inspiration for future generations to aspire to build greatness. A perfect example of this are the pyramids of Egypt. And I'll probably take great out of here because I'm using greatness there, so I don't want to have too much redundancy. All right. Let's go to the next question. I think it's a good one. And again, lots of great answers. So a big thumbs up to all of you who are providing fantastic answers. At times, tourists cause damage to important historical sites. Why is this? How can this be stopped? So at times, tourists cause damage to important historical sites. Why is this? How can this be stopped? Okay, what can be done? What can be done? Android, thanks for that. It's not the computer that's connected to the projector. The computer that's streaming is on Windows 10. The computer to the projector is on Windows 8 point something, but the computer that's running the stream, it's actually two computers in play here. I think a lot of students probably don't know that, but to do this live class, you need two computers. One for the projector, one for three monitors, the projector, the feedback display, and the display feeding the monitor. All right, that's an anecdote. Chandradeep says, some tourists damage historical sites since they don't have an understanding about the architecture and the history associated with it. Government should impose fines and information about the architecture. I'm not sure what you mean by hoardings, Chandradeep. That's a little bit confusing. Jaskaran says, as most tourists are from other countries or areas, they try their best to destroy others' history by damaging their historical places. Governments should keep an eye on this and should fine them in this case. Okay, Jaskaran. Yeah, so lack of respect, I think, Jaskaran, is what you're looking for here. Kevin Bui says, visitors inevitably damage historical sites out of ignorance, as they might accidentally touch or scrape surfaces of artifacts when taking pictures. This can be curbed by tightening control over the code of conduct for visitors, preventing physical contact, or even just littering. Okay, very good, Kevin. Very, very good. All right. Let's see. Damilola says, if the building is of great importance, tourists should be made to pay an entry fee. Part of the fee covers maintenance. People cherish objects that they have to pay for. Yeah, absolutely. It's true. Sai, unfortunately, it is true that visitors cause some irreversible damage to historical sites. Their protection can be ensured by providing better security and limited visitor population. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so limiting the flow of tourism, minimizing, setting a maximum visitor count. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Jassy says, tourists tend to damage heritage buildings by littering used garbage like water bottles. Authorities should impose fines in order to alleviate this from happening. Okay, very good, Jassy. Jassy, don't use the word stuff. Okay, stay away from that. Kuldeep says, when tourists visit historical places, they tend to litter. They should be immediately fined for doing so, and there should be CCTV to record and control these demeanor everywhere so that visitors don't damage. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So I believe that visitors to many historic sites cause problems because they lack respect and knowledge of for the area. In order to curtail this from happening, tourists should be heavily fined, say $500 for doing such acts as removing rocks from a temple or scraping the walls of a monument. All right. I'm going to stop there. Okay, so repeat after me. At times, tourists can cause damage to important historical sites. Why is this? How can this be stopped? I believe that visitors to many historic sites cause problems because they lack respect and knowledge for the area. In order to curtail this from happening, tourists should be heavily fined, say $500 for doing such acts as removing rocks from a temple or scraping the walls of a monument. All right. Again, lots of paraphrasing, lots of show vocabulary. I hope everybody is repeating and copying. Let's take one more here. So, next question. What kinds of places will be designated as historical sites in the future? Okay. So, give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. Make it your best. It's the last question of the week. So give me your best response. What kinds of places will be designated as historical sites in the future? Okay. Goti is asking, can I use wear and tear for damage? Not in this context, Goti, because wear and tear is natural damage that happens over time. Like my shoes have a lot of wear and tear from walking around my neighborhood for the past 2 years. Okay, so it's kind of like the natural entropy that happens. So wear and tear would not be... Well, yeah, Gotti, there are a couple of cases where you could in that one. It's a good question. You'd have to work it in, though. You have to be careful how to use it. Okay. Kevin says, I think skyscrapers would be deemed historical monuments because they are prominent landmarks which represent the architectural feats of certain generations. By the same token, houses built with eccentric designs or materials would also be bestowed this title. Very nice, Kevin. I'm sure you're investing lots of time reading and looking at vocabulary because you're using it beautifully. I like the word bestowed. Okay, it's very nice. Bestow means to honorably give that title. Okay, very good. All right. Harman, just ask your question and I'll try to catch it in the chat. So ask away. If I see it, I'll answer it. If I don't, Harman Deep, just send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. The email's also at the beginning of this class, okay? And you can find it, of course, on the YouTube channel as well. Okay. All right. Sunaina says the places where less tourists visit are many places in Odisha, like Lingaraj Temple, and I believe these will become historical sites in the future. Kuldeep says, in the future, many buildings which served nations for years are popular by their names among a common man will serve as historical buildings. A little bit confusing, Kuldeep. Check your answer there. I'm not sure that's clear. I'm not sure what you really wanted to say there, okay? Umida says, in the future, I suppose this idea, many developed and modern buildings, will be built by architects. What places will be designated as historical sites? So, and it's not just buildings, it's historical sites. So it doesn't have to be a building. Okay. All right. Sai Krishna says, I certainly think IT parks will be made monuments because they have state-of-the-art infrastructure and architecture. This is definitely different from the past because we did not have these back then. Okay. Chandradeep says only places which have national pride associated with them, such as what, Chandradeep? Okay. So I think that similarly, as in the past, buildings these that are of significance for people, such as where extraordinary events occur or people be bestowed the title of historical monument. Perhaps one day the garage where Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak designed the first full computer will be protected and surrounded by fence. Treasure. All right. I don't think I spelled Wozniak's name right, but tricky spelling on that. Anyway, here we go. What kinds of places will be designated as historical sites in the future? I think that similarly as in the past, buildings and localities that are of significance for people, such as where extraordinary events occur or people live, shall be bestowed the title of historical monument. Perhaps one day the garage where Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak designed the first Apple computer will be protected and surrounded by fence and named a national treasure. Okay. There we go. So answer, explain, example. All right. Umida says, you need more practice for speaking skills. Yes, practice, Umida, is very important. Sadesh says it's Wozniak, not Wozniak. Still don't think my spell check will recognize it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, practice does make perfect, Umida. I agree with you 100%. Okay, everyone. So we did some practice today, and you can do lots more on our websites, aehelp.com. You can do lots of speaking practice there. You can video chat, audio chat with other IELTS students practicing for general IELTS. It's gieltshelp.com. And you can also use our apps. Use the apps Academic IELTS Help and the app General IELTS Help. Instagram, IELTS_AEHelp, GIELTS Help. Questions, Adrian at aehelp.com. One-time payment for lifetime access on our websites. Definitely worth it. That's it for me for today. I will be back on Wednesday at the same time for the next week with speaking part 1. Keep up the great work, everyone. Again, there are speaking partners on aehelp.com that are waiting for you. So check that out. Click on the student partner speaking. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend for those of you who are still on your weekend. I know some of you are starting your week soon, and if you're among those starting your week soon, then have a great week. I'm Adrian, signing out from beautiful, somewhat rainy Victoria for now. Much love to all of you.